Remember that weird 5-month period where Jinder Mahal was WWE Champion? A few months previously, Jinder was competing on Main Event and jobbing out to guys like Mojo, Rawley, and Gronkowski. Then he suddenly captured the gold in one of the most bizarre booking decisions in wrestling history, and one that only looks worse as we move through time. This was in May 2017, and it was far from WWE's most successful year. The company had a ton of problems at the time, and putting the belt on a glorified jobber cemented just how creatively bankrupt the company had become. In this video, we're going to look at the problems that plagued Jinder Mahal's reign and suggest some ways they could have salvaged this historically bad period in WWE television. Fantasy booking is always easy in hindsight, but a team of professional writers should be able to foresee some of the issues that might arise when making such outlandish decisions. Jinder Mahal's WWE title reign could have worked if he had 10. A less transparent reason to become champion. It was painfully obvious from day one that the only reason they put the belt on Jinder was because WWE wanted to expand their presence in the Indian market. Therefore, WWE believed that the best way to appeal to Indian fans was to put the belt on a superstar with Indian heritage, despite Jinder Mahal actually being born and raised in Canada, something that a quick Google search would tell anyone. This transparent attempt to cater to Indian fans plagued Jinder's reign from start to finish. He wasn't positioned as the top guy in the company because he had charisma, in-ring skills, or a connection with the fans. It was purely because he shared ancestry with the kind of fans WWE wanted to market to. It was super artificial and borderline offensive, not to mention that historically, these kinds of pandering efforts are rarely effective. It was a perfect example of WWE being out of touch and still treating fans like they would have 40 years ago. 9. A strong build-up. Jinder's title opportunity came out of nowhere. In April 2017, he was inserted in a 6-man match to become a contender for the WWE Championship. He won, and 4 weeks later, he beat Randy Orton clean in the ring to win the title. It was the fastest rocket strapping perhaps of all time, and while abrupt title changes can sometimes be exciting, Jinder's win only served to confuse the fans and thus make for an unconvincing champion. Only a few months before this sudden thrust into the title scene, Jinder Mahal was doing nothing of importance. His losses on B shows were still fresh in our minds, and even though Jinder had since recruited some backup in the form of the Singh brothers, it made for a very jarring transition from jobber to WWE champion within the space of 2 months. The lack of build-up felt like a middle finger from WWE to its fans. It was as though a team of creative professionals couldn't be bothered to come up with a brief, compelling story for Jinder's sudden ascension, and instead just said, screw the fans, tapping into a new market is more important than their entertainment. 8. A modern gimmick. Despite his nickname of the modern-day Maharaja, Jinder Mahal's character could have been transported straight from 1985. He was a foreign villain who constantly cited bigotry as his main motivation, and while this would have worked in the 70s and 80s, it didn't really fly in a more progressive era, especially when bigotry certainly wasn't the reason why fans never got behind Jinder, and instead had much more to do with his outdated presentation. Jinder was basically a throwback to everything that should have been left behind in the 70s and 80s. He was all physique and no substance. Jinder even worked like an old school territory bad guy. He looked like a powerhouse, but his matches were slow and tedious. His style really sapped all of the energy and excitement from the crowd, and he didn't have the charisma or heel heat to command them either. He was a two-dimensional character who couldn't hold his own against other top guys in the scene. He badly needed a gimmick change, or at least some form of character development, but neither came to fruition. 7. An underdog story. There's one aspect of Jinder's reign that gets completely overlooked, and it's really the backbone to all the problems that followed. If WWE were trying to appeal to Indian fans, why would they make their champion a cowardly heel? There's a fine line between heel heat and go away heat. It only takes a few small mistakes to make fans stop hating the character and instead hate the person behind it. From day one, Jinder was seen as a symbol of WWE's disconnect from their fans' desires and was never really seen as an in-character villain. WWE could have easily adjusted this by making Jinder Mahal a babyface underdog character. The seeds were already planted for such a story given Jinder's previous losses and failures, and he'd returned in December of the previous year looking way more lean and muscular. But instead of a compelling redemption story, WWE made him a chicken heel type who resorted to cheating tactics to win the gold. 6. Elevate other superstars. A villain is only as good as the hero he's fighting. In today's wrestling landscape, completely dominating the competition doesn't always translate to a believable monster. Fans want to see competitive matches between two equally skilled competitors, thus making the winner look better in victory. Jinder didn't have that. Instead, he went over multiple people, either by steamrolling them or cheating with the use of the Singh brothers. It wasn't like Jinder didn't have a number of worthy opponents to make him look good and vice versa. SmackDown had Shinsuke Nakamura, Kevin Owens, AJ Styles, and tons of mid-carders to help add some legitimacy to Jinder's reign. But Jinder's competitive bouts were completely non-existent. All it did was cheapen the main event scene and make the other major players on the roster look worse by comparison. 5. Consistent character development. Shortly into Jinder's reign, it became clear that WWE Creative didn't quite know what to do with their unexpected champion. Each week, he would cut forgettable promos that were just rehashes of what he said the week before. He continually criticized the fans for not celebrating diversity, while at the same time making racist comments towards Shinsuke Nakamura during a promo on SmackDown. With a little mental gymnastics, you might be able to put this down to Jinder being a hypocrite, perhaps a character flaw, but it's highly unlikely that WWE Creative put this much thought into Jinder's character and instead just went for a cheap shot to get a little heat from the crowd. Worst of all, Jinder cut this promo in Oakland, California, a place known for having a strong Asian presence. This promo was in such bad taste that the Washington Post actually ran a story about how it went too far. Of course, creative mediums offer great ways to make statements on serious issues, but given that WWE barely knew what they were doing with their own world champion, it's probably best that they don't try their hand at navigating the complex issue of racism. It made for a jarring moment that did nothing to heat up Jinder as a villain. We didn't hate the character, we just hated his writers. 4. Don't bring back one of the worst stipulations ever. Jinder had a 2-month feud with the Viper Randy Orton, resulting in a blow-off match in what's largely considered to be the stupidest structure in all of wrestling, the Punjabi Prison. There's only ever been 3 Punjabi prison matches in WWE history, and for good reason. The Punjabi prison is basically a cage made of bamboo, but in kayfabe it's supposed to be twice as dangerous as a regular cage. We're not sure in what world bamboo hurts more than steel, but nothing else in Jinder's reign made sense, so it figures that this wouldn't either. Again, it was simply a way to shoehorn Jinder's Indian ancestry into the storyline. The actual match was a 25-minute bore fest that did nothing for either competitor and was just another way to pander to Indian fans by utilizing the word Punjabi within their feud. And the ending of the match? Well, that's the whole next point in itself. 3. The Great Khali. Ask 100 people to name the worst wrestler in WWE history, and the Great Khali's name will pop up about 99 times. Khali was slow, meandering, and his only redeeming feature was the fact that he was a massive giant. He was the terrible wrestler and an even worse character, but for some reason he became a pop culture icon over in India. It was obvious that WWE were trying to recapture this magic with Jinder, so at the culmination of the Punjabi prison match, they had Khali come out, despite leaving WWE 3 years before, and assist Jinder for the win. The assist was never explained or expanded upon, it just happened. In a way, it was a smart move to pair the two, except in true WWE style, they believed that just having the two Indian guys on screen together would be enough to elevate Jinder to Khali's level of popularity. But before Khali left WWE in 2014, he was a comedic babyface, so having him assist the aggressive heel left fans more confused than anything else. The answer to this problem was quite obvious. They could have had Jinder engage in a short feud with Khali, eventually toppling India's biggest wrestling star and taking the crown for himself. But of course, that would have been way too much effort. 2. Give him some memorable moments. Other than how awful it was, nobody remembers anything about Jinder Mahal's reign. For 5 months, he had nothing but forgettable feuds and resurrected one of the most despised matches in wrestling history. For how big WWE are with moments, they gave Jinder no replayable, bite-sized moments that they could have used for future video packages or YouTube clips. When we look back at historic championship reigns, we remember the highlights of each story. Every reign had standout moments, be it a huge spot, a great promo, or a big win. Jinder's whole reign was one huge, repetitive snooze fest marred with interference from the Singh brothers. Some big, memorable moments could have helped establish him as a legitimate threat and made his reign a little more positive upon reflection. 1. Changed plans at the first sign of failure. Despite WWE's desires, Jinder Mahal's championship reign did not bolster numbers in India. In fact, subscriptions to the WWE network actually went down during his reign, and for any other company, this would have prompted them to change course. But WWE's stubbornness knows no bounds. Vince McMahon knows what the fans want better than they do, so by God, they're going to get a 5-month title reign whether they like it or not. For a while, Jinder was basically the Indian Roman Reigns, only without the charisma, good looks, or in-ring skills. During Jinder's reign, Kevin Owens and AJ Styles were far surpassing the Maharaja in terms of popularity and YouTube views. Meanwhile, other Indian wrestlers were getting literally millions of YouTube views, while Jinder's highlights barely cracked the 500,000 mark. It was a sign that Jinder Mahal wasn't the major draw they wanted him to be, and that should have been enough evidence to make them change direction. But they didn't, and that's why Jinder Mahal's time at the top of WWE remains one of the worst periods in the past 10 years. That concludes our look into how Jinder Mahal's title reign should have gone. Did we miss anything? Maybe you actually liked Jinder's rise to the top. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.